Hello, everyone. I'm very excited to welcome David Sedgwick to our Bloomerangas podcast today. And David is the founder of independent design studio based in Manchester. It's called Studio DBD. And he has recently curated a very interesting design exhibition in Barcelona, bringing together creatives from Barcelona and Manchester. And previously, he has been creating design exhibitions in Manchester, bringing designers based in Barcelona over there. So it's very interesting. And I can't wait to learn more of how did this exhibition go, since it was just recently on September 25th, isn't it?
Yeah, just a few days ago, just last week. Just back in the UK now.
Yeah, so how did it go and what did you learn? And
wow, okay, straight in on the Barcelona connection. Well, I probably need to give you a little bit of background about why Barcelona, because it's something that often people ask me.
Right.
I don't really have a connection to Barcelona as such. I'm not from there. I don't have family from there. I don't speak Spanish or Catalan. But I fell in love with Barcelona like many years ago when I visited as part of a kind of college trip, like an art trip at a kind of 17, 18 years old. And I really liked Barcelona. I really fell in love with the kind of culture and the creativity of the city. And I've always felt that to some extent, Manchester and Barcelona have quite a few similarities. Like they're quite industrial cities built on a history of industry and kind of a sort of working class culture. Of course, Barcelona is not the capital city of Spain. Madrid is. It's the same here in the UK, with London being the capital, and Manchester kind of always, I suppose, competing a little bit with London, almost like kind of having to sort of rise above and fight its corner, similar to Barcelona. And I always just really liked the two cities. I always felt there were similarities. Many years ago, back in 2012, so it's a long time ago, I was visiting Barcelona and I decided to go and see some design studios in the city. I emailed them and asked them if I could come and meet with them, talk about design and talk about their background, their agency, that kind of stuff. The first place I went was a design studio called Lo Siento, and I met a guy there called Borja. And Borja was a larger-than-life character, very fun, very creative, very passionate. And he loved Manchester. He loved the music and the scene, and he loved the culture of this city. And we were just talking, and I said, completely out of the blue, wouldn't it be great to have an exhibition of your work, but in Manchester? And he was really interested in that, and he was really excited by the idea. And before I knew it, I'd promised something that I'd had no experience in delivering before. I didn't put exhibitions on. I didn't curate exhibitions. I had no idea how to do it. But I thought, well, I've said it now, so I'm going to have to make this happen.
That's the best way to kick things off.
The best way to start anything, just say it and then worry about it afterwards.
Exactly.
And so I went then to see a design studio that I'm sure many people have heard of called Hey Studio, a really good studio in Barcelona. I met Veronica, and she had a really small team at the time. I think there was only maybe 2 or 3 of them. And I told her,
did a podcast episode with Veronica.
Oh, fantastic. Right, brilliant. Well, I played a little bit of a trick on it, because I said, I've been asking these agencies and they want to do an exhibition. Would you want to do an exhibition as well? Bear in mind, I'd only asked 1, but before I knew it, I had 2 and 3 and 4. And so I decided to return to Manchester, and I thought, well, I need to find a venue. I need to find a printer. I need to figure out how to make some money to, pay the costs. And I just managed to do it. In 2013, we had the first ever, it was called BCN MCR, so Barcelona, Manchester. I flew them over, Mucho, an agency called Mucho, Lo Siento, Hey Studio, and another one called Mayuscula Brands. I paid for their flights. I put them up in a hotel. We had a series of talks. I charged a really low amount for the tickets. They sold out super quickly. I should have charged a lot more, but I wanted it to be accessible to everybody, to students and graduates and designers. But it was a really good event. We had an exhibition of work. We had the talks. And then I decided to do it again the year after, in 2014, the second version. But I got a bigger venue this time, and I got some sponsorship, some funding. And I learned some lessons from the first experience, so I was able to take that into the second event. I had more studios came this time, more came from Barcelona. So that was 2 years really of starting to build a connection with the city. In 2015, I became a dad, and my free time became less and less for me. I was more invested, obviously, in being a dad and building my own studio and my own practice and my own work. And the years went by like they do, very fast. And then it got to 2023, and I thought, well, it's 10 years since the first ever BCN MCR. Why don't I do a 10-year anniversary of the event? But this time I thought, well, how can I do something a little bit different? And I decided to design and produce a limited edition book with 60 creatives from Barcelona, all producing work for the book. And I interviewed a lot of them, and I transcribed the interviews, and we had this beautiful book, which I can show you because I've got a copy of it here.
Yeah.
Just grab a copy of it for you.
Yeah.
Everything's falling off, but this is the book.
Oh, great! Where can people get it?
There's none left anymore. I only have a handful left.
It's out of stock.
It's completely out of stock. We only printed 350 copies. The idea behind the cover is this is a representation of the Senyora, which is the flag of Catalan flag of Barcelona.
Right.
But it also works as what we call like a tally chart. So the idea was every time somebody sent me their work, I would tick them off the tally chart, and this represents 60 creatives. And then the idea is that they would produce work for the book and interviews. And I was asking them, where they saw themselves in kind of 10 years' time and what they'd be doing. And they all gave me sort of inspirational quotes and things like that, what they wanted to see themselves done in the next decade. So I did this book. I put the event on, and I decided that would be the end of connections between Barcelona and Manchester. Like, I'd had a really good run. I'd really enjoyed it. I'd made lots of contacts. I'd made lots of friends. I'd created this kind of legacy, I guess, of Manchester and Barcelona when it came to graphic design. And that was the end of it for me until about 12 months ago. I received an email from somebody within Manchester, somebody in the council. And they said that this year, 2025, Manchester had been asked to be the guest partner with Barcelona for something called La Mercè Festival. And La Mercè is a really big event in Barcelona. It's a celebration of Barcelona and Catalan culture. It takes over the whole city. It's a public holiday in Barcelona. So it's a really big event that happens every year in Barcelona. And every year they have a guest city, like a partner. And this time it was Manchester. And they said, well, you've kind of, your name keeps coming up on Google whenever we type in Barcelona and Manchester. So we thought we'd get in touch with you and see if you'd be willing to do something as part of this festival. So, that's kind of the background of it. And I thought, well, okay, may as well give it one more go. So that's what happened last week. I took a space. We rented out a space in the centre of Barcelona, a really cool photography studio, really nice natural light and exposed brick and wooden floorboards. And we had this exhibition of work in there. And the basis of the exhibition was 20 large format cubes, printed cubes, and two sides were designed by emerging Manchester creatives. So maybe they just finished university, or in some cases still studying design. And the other two sides were done by emerging Barcelona creatives. So they worked together in collaboration to design these 20 cubes. The brief from me was just really abstract. It was just to tell a love story of their city. To tell a love letter of their city. So the idea was that they could work together really closely, or they could work in isolation, but they had to produce this cube. And what I wanted to do was create connections, not just during La Marseille Festival and not just during the event, but before the event. So I put these 20 creatives together with the other 20 in Barcelona, and I introduced them on email, and then they started to have conversations and they started to work together. They found they had a lot of commonalities, a lot of things that they could do, a lot of things in common, a lot of ways of working that they shared. And it's this beautiful exhibition of a coming together of two cultures, two cities in the world of design. On top of that, I asked 12 established creatives in Manchester, so design studios or practices that have been going for maybe 10, 15 years, if they could design some large format hanging banners that would sit in the background. So you've got this kind of established sense of, design from Manchester, juxtaposed with this kind of emerging creatives as well. So it really showcased what Manchester has as a city when it comes to design, but with a little bit of Barcelona thrown in as well.
Nice, beautiful.
Sorry, I had to tell you all in this. Try to do it in a short space of time.
So, are you done now with this mission, or?
Well, I think you I could never say never, because that wouldn't be fair. But I think right now, like, I have exhausted the Manchester-Barcelona connection. However, I love the idea of Manchester connecting with other cities. So
exactly, I wanted to suggest, why not take another city then?
Take another city, exactly. And that's exactly what I want to do. Like the idea of MCR and New York or Berlin or Amsterdam, and have Manchester either hosting an exhibition or a talk, or traveling Manchester to various different destinations. Because we are a city that, has reinvented itself over a number of years. We have a history of music, specifically music, and with music comes, a lot of creativity and a lot of kind of art and culture and passion.
Yes.
And it's the same even now. I mean, we had a really important period during the sort of 80s and 90s with lots of musicians, such as the Stone Roses, Happy Mondays, New Order, Joy Division,
right, exactly.
Oasis, of course. And even now, there's still a lot of independent, small artists and bands and kind of musicians that are still, coming out of Manchester. And I think with music and design, they go hand in hand. And I think when most people think of Manchester, they think of football or they think of music. But, I want them to also think about graphic design as well, because it's a great city to be a designer in.
For more inspiring content, subscribe to our Substack at creativity.bloomerangas.com and our Bloomerangas YouTube channel, where we explore creativity from every angle, how to activate it, live it, and facilitate it for others, featuring talks with world-class creators and insights from behind the Bloomerangas game.
Right. So can you tell us a little bit more about the design scene in Manchester? What is it like?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I came to Manchester in the late 1990s. I studied at Manchester School of Art. We have a number of colleges and universities in Manchester, not just in the city, but also in the sort of surrounding areas. We have Salford, which is also a city, which is right next door to Manchester. They have a fantastic design course. There's also Stockport as well, Bolton, Blackburn. So in the area of this kind of part of the UK, there's an awful lot of design courses. So you get a lot of young graphic designers coming to the northwest of England to study. And I think when I studied here in Manchester, the idea was that, you went down to London to make a career. But I didn't. I stayed in Manchester. I really fell in love with the city. I thought there was enough here for me, and I've seen it grow so much over the last 25 years. I mean, it's just changed massively, and in some ways, it's you have a romanticism for the past a little bit and the history of the city, but you can't help but feel proud of where things have changed as well. And Manchester has changed a lot, but with that change has brought more opportunities. More larger businesses are moving and working in Manchester. which brings more kind of chances for people like me to work on larger projects. But I think what's really important about Manchester, beyond just the clients and the businesses that are here, is the people. There's a real community in Manchester. I've put design events on. I've been involved in design projects in the city, and you get a really high turnout of people. People are really interested in what goes on in the city.
That's great.
I think because it's not so big, people can always try and come to things that are happening in the city centre. I think in some cities, such as London, it's so big and so vast that people live or work all over the city. If there's something happening in an evening, maybe it's too far to get to, or it's too difficult to make it. Whereas in Manchester, where it's a bit more compact, people tend to come to these events, and there's a real scene here. There's a real group of people, and maybe I'm a little bit older now and the next generation are coming through, but you still see sort of friendly faces and people who are really passionate about design and creativity. And so any events that happen here are always really well attended. And yeah, I think that over the years, whereas a lot of work went to the likes of London and perhaps even internationally abroad, it's starting to really filter into Manchester. You don't need to leave this city to make a career out of creativity, whether that's someone like me, like an independent studio, or whether you're a larger studio with more staff working globally on lots of different projects. This is a great city for having, for making a design career.
Wonderful. So when you run, let's say, exhibition, do they last for like a specific amount of time, or it's more like a day event like it was in Barcelona lately?
So the previous exhibitions that I did were obviously, they were a little bit longer. Like the artwork was up for 2-3 weeks, which is great because it allows lots of different people to come, not just from Manchester, but from various parts of the UK and in some cases further afield. What was quite fun about the one in Barcelona, although also very strange for me, was that it was only actually open for a day. So it put an awful lot of work into the exhibition.
That's a shame.
But it was just for one day. But we had hundreds of people came to see it. I think that we counted somewhere in the region of about 400 people came in the space of a day to see the exhibition. And sometimes that can be really fun as well, because you focus on that one day, that one event. But yeah, I like it when I want to create things where lots of different people can see it. I want it to be one of those events where, it's not elitist. We're not kind of trying to not let anybody, they're very open. I'm that kind of person. The work that I do is very much about people and connections and authenticity. And so when I put events on, I don't want it to feel like, the kind of art gallery or the space that you walk in where you feel like you don't belong. I want people to feel like they are welcome there and that they can come. And so I do like them when they're a bit longer, because I think that opens up the opportunities for people to see the work. And people put a lot of time and effort into the work as well that was in the exhibition. So, which reminds me, one other thing is if anybody listening wants to look at the website, which is mcrbcn.com. All of the artwork is on the website now as well, so people can see the pieces that have been created by the artists.
Yes, it's very beautifully done website. It really feels like a gallery. So we'll put the link in the comments for everyone listening or watching. Check it out.
Fantastic.
Great. So you have a really kind of broad stroke, right, in everything you do related with design. How do you see the profession of designer changing now with all the changes in AI and technology? And how do you see this profession evolving over the years moving forward?
I think it's a great question. And I think that we are all figuring out the future as it happens, because it's happening so quickly. Change is happening daily. Even just while we're on this podcast, something new will have probably been invented or launched, and it's really difficult to keep on top of it. But I've been working in design now. It will be 25 years next year since I finished university and started working in the design industry. And I think for me, what was important then is still as important today, and that's people, and that's relationships. And so for me, the way that technology is changing and advancing is in some ways can be seen as great, but I don't think we should ever replace human connection and human relationships. And for me, that's really important. It's really important in what I do, the work that I create. You talk about events or exhibitions, that's all about making connections. We joked at the start about, the how Barcelona and Manchester thing came about. It came about through having a conversation, and from me just talking and kind of, allowing myself to be heard and allowing myself to listen to someone else as well. And I think that we should never lose sight of that with the work that we do. I've realized over the years, as I've got more experience as well, when I'm working on design projects, that the best work comes out of collaboration and working closely with a client. And I think that what's perhaps happening with design a little bit is we're trying to make the process shorter and quicker and make it faster, and sometimes we're losing a little bit of the integrity of design and the soul of design and the heart and the passion of design. Like, why should we always want to do things so quickly? Like, graphic design it's an art form, it's a passion, it's something that we believe in and we want to do well. And I know we have client deadlines and we can't work on things indefinitely, but the best projects are when time is allowed to happen and relationships are allowed to flourish and you're working really well with a client. And I don't want to lose that. And I feel we are losing that with things like AI. And I feel some design that I see now is just done too quickly. It's like trying to get to the answer super quickly, and maybe in some cases missing like the enjoyable part of the process, which is the journey and the mistakes and the errors and the experimentation. And that's where the good stuff happens, and that's where really good design happens. And that's where real connection happens as well, between you and a client, or you and your team, or you and whoever you're working with. Not just when we just do something instantly or quickly, or we use a program just to get to the end as quick as we can. I think we're losing part of the journey in that process.
Yes, very much so. I think that's probably there's something happens magical, right? In that process, when people come together to collaborate, it's something that you could never generate on your own or with the help of technology. It's just that aspect of human connection, right? That really can create something much more unique than working with technology.
Absolutely. I think technology, at the end of the day, it's a tool, and we have to use it as a tool, just like the programs that we design in, or the way that we use technology in our everyday life. It is a tool. I think we have to just remember that and stop using AI and technology as a human being, as another person. Nothing is ever going to replicate the way that humans interact with each other. I can't ever see, no matter how good technology is going, we have evolved over thousands and thousands and thousands of years, and I think it's important to remember that. And we, humans work much better with people. I mean, the pandemic, COVID-19, what happened then made us all realize that we need people around us. We need to be interacting and we need to be connecting. And I think design needs that interaction. Design needs that connection to work well. It's also taken me a number of years to realize how that I can't do everything. As an independent designer, like often I do try to, but some of the best work that I've done, some of the best projects I've been involved in, is where I've allowed other people to be part of the mix, and I've brought people in, or I've worked closely with the client or with the supplier or whoever, to create the best work. And so that's something a little bit different to your question, but this idea of being an independent design studio, but actually using other people to get to the end result along the way is really important. So again, that human connection, that people in the importance of people, I guess.
Right. So you mean like by working with people from different disciplines, or just working with different kinds of people?
I think both, really. I think certainly disciplines is one thing. So, I think a few years ago, I was maybe had an arrogance that I could do everything. So I could learn a bit of software, or I could, I didn't want anybody to work on the project. I wanted to just do it myself. And I think as I've got older, I've realized that, I know what I'm good at, but I'm not good at everything, of course, who is? And so I bring people in, whether that's a freelance, a photographer, an illustrator, another designer, a web developer or an animator, and I bring them in on the right projects. And so, most of the time I'm sort of the creative director, or I'm in charge of it, if you like. I can't think of a better way to describe it, but the idea that it comes under my studio and me, but it's not always done just by me, because I bring the right people in on the right project. But also not just people like creatives, but as I say, like working closely with clients. I think, again, maybe in the past I had relationships with clients that was very much about, I suppose I had an arrogance there as well, that I was thinking, well, they don't understand graphic design, or they don't understand good ideas.
I think all designers go through this.
Yeah, we all go through it, and I still do a bit, but I think that I was probably asking the wrong questions. I was probably not mature enough or experienced enough to be able to get the best out of a client. So I would listen to them, and then I would kind of go to the studio and design something that I thought was really good, and then I would send it to them, and they'd be like, well, you've not answered the brief. And I think that comes with experience and asking the right questions, but being aware of what the client can bring to the project as well. It's not just about creating beautiful graphic design that I think looks good on social media or on my website or on a blog, but actually it's about answering a client's brief and listening to what a client wants and involving that client in the process. So too often in the past, I would probably take a brief and I would go back to the studio and I'd work on the project for sort of 2 weeks, 3 weeks, like most of us do, and then I would send a presentation. Now I try to involve the client a little bit more in the early stages as well. I have this idea, or I have a quick visual or a reference or a concept, to get them on board from early on in the project, rather than when I've spent 2 weeks slaving over a piece of design, like really struggling with it. And there's two reasons. The first is because I think if you bring someone along on the journey, then you get better work out of it. But also, in honesty, like I don't want to spend 2-3 weeks on something, spending hours trying to craft something and, deliberating over it, sleepless nights and kind of like, not getting time to go out at lunch, or just working all the time, only for a client to dismiss it in an instant. I think there's nothing more soul destroying than that. So if you take them along on the journey, I think you find that the client is much more involved in the process and much more likely to accept your viewpoint in terms of design and what you think works. But again, making sure the client feels like you're answering their brief. What are they trying to achieve? And that comes with experience. So yeah, I think working with people both on the project itself to produce it, but also to get the project and to get the project off the ground is really important.
Yes, very well said. And yes, a lot of designers go through this phase until really we kind of understand that co-creating with the client is both productive and sort of saves everyone painful moments.
Yeah.
Yes. Hi guys, I wanted to tell you a little bit more about creativity playgrounds that we set up at organizations, creative spaces, community centers, hospitals, children places, anywhere where you want to bring in more life. Our playgrounds can be as simple as a spinning board, which you can see where the content there is customized for your audience. There are different quests that people go through, and we decide on what those are together with you. Or we can set up a multi-spot self-guided experience where people go through the spots, do various exercises, and then create something at the end of this experience. For example, what you're seeing right now is a sample experience from what we did on the topic of create your avatar. That was very interesting. So if you are interested to set up something like that, please reach out and we'll be happy to discuss that with you. So do you usually work with clients these days like remotely or also live, or it's hybrid kind of?
I think I still really like working with clients where I can meet with them. I mean, obviously we're talking today on using the power of technology and
Yes.
From various different parts of the world, and that's
Right.
fantastic. That's amazing, and I think it's great the way things have developed. But you cannot be face-to-face interaction, and I love it when a client comes to me who's maybe from Manchester or certainly in locally, because I really enjoy meeting them. Whether that's for a coffee or a beer or a conversation, they come to the studio, they meet my dog, I show them around the building. I think that's where the best work happens. Again, I have done plenty of work internationally and I've done some great projects, but I've not even ever met some of the clients I've worked for, just had emails and video calls. And I'm more than happy to take on any project if anyone's listening internationally. But I do love working on projects that I can feel connected with on a local basis. So I've just produced some work for a new library space that's opened in the town near to Manchester called Stockroom. Stockroom was a project I really enjoyed doing. I was really heavily involved in that from day one, meeting with the council, meeting with the client, going to the space, seeing how it was all being built and put together, and then seeing my work, made into signage, made into actual physical, design that is actually real rather than just on a screen. It's a real impactful moment for me seeing that kind of work. So I think for me, clients come from all over the place, but the majority of clients that I get, probably 75% of clients, come from word of mouth. So they come from making connections and friendships and sort of relationships with people. Even just in this building that I work in, like there's other companies within the building, not just graphic designers, but various different clients. And I've met many of them just from sitting downstairs on my laptop, or my dog, that she's asleep at the moment, but my dog comes into work with me and she walks around and she's a great conversational starter, and I've picked up work from the dog. So I kind of get work from all sorts of places, but again, mostly it comes from conversation and friendship and connections that way. And I've never really had to massively promote myself in a traditional sense. So, I don't know if people still do this, but cold calling, like phoning people up or randomly emailing people, or, I don't even really have a website. I just have a holding page. I use Instagram for a lot of my work, but I don't have a massive online presence, but I'm always busy. I'm always kind of spinning plates and trying to finish one job and start another and keep this client happy whilst I work on this project. And it's been like that for so many years. I don't really know how to do things any differently, really.
Well, wonderful. You have your way.
Somehow have my way.
It's an adventure. It's
yes,
fun.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely an adventure.
So what type of projects, besides, having clients close to you, do you enjoy working the most?
I think for me, so going back to right at the beginning, and I always called myself a graphic designer because that's what I studied at A-level at college and went to university and was a graphic designer. I don't think I really understood what graphic design was back in the when I was starting out at university and when I first finished. But I called myself a graphic designer, and for many years that's what I thought I was. And then one day somebody said to me, you're really good at like brand design. And I'll be honest, like I didn't really understand what brand design was. I thought, it was all just graphic design, like everything was graphic design. And I sort of said, oh, thank you, I appreciate it. And then I went home and I sort of Googled branding design. I thought, yeah, this is something that I'm quite good at, like finding like these kind of like important details about a client and creating a visual representation of that business. And that was branding. And then things sort of changed to me that, for then I sort of realized that all this time I'd been doing like this branding and this brand design, whereas I thought it was graphic design. And I know that it's very fluid and there's a lot of kind of connections, but I started to realize, maybe sort of 10, 12 years ago that I was really passionate about branding and passionate about, like I said, people and making work for the right people. And so, yeah, I think I prefer branding. I prefer working on projects where I can really get under the skin of a client's needs and what they want, and I can visually represent what they're after. And I've had meetings where people have said, we've spent years trying to figure out what we stand for visually, and you've kind of been able to achieve that in a short space of time and bring it out, and that feels great. When that's a real sort of dopamine hit when you've done that,
right?
And then to see that work being used, like I said before about the project in Stockport, the art, so the library space, to see that actually, come to fruition, and to see my work around Manchester, whether that's on advertising hoardings or at the front of a bar or a restaurant, there's something really good about that. I think real graphic design or real brand design that comes to life. That's the kind of work I want.
All right. Beautiful. And how much experimentation, how much time do you spend really experimenting, right, before suggesting things for clients? Sounds like you, at the moment, you have a very kind of collaborative way to work for clients, right? To work with clients, but before you even give something to them, do you experiment at all, or usually have a very pretty clear vision after you talk with the client what would work for them?
It's a really good question. I think experimentation is really important, and I've worked with a lot of universities and colleges, and a lot of students and young designers, and I always tell them like the importance of trying things and to experiment and to fail. And I think we lose a little bit of that as we go through our design journey, which is a shame. So for me, like certainly in my younger years, I would do a lot more experimenting, a lot more of trying things, a lot more of failing. And I produced a lot of work that way. But I think the issue is, and it's often a dilemma, and I know I talked earlier about the importance of time and allowing time to happen. And I think that's still really important. And I want to make that clear. But unfortunately, I am an independent design studio with only a certain amount of hours in a day.
Right.
And I have a tremendous amount of projects on the go at once. Sometimes 6, 7, 8 projects are on the go. And I'm constantly trying to balance those projects. And so I have to be careful about how much time I spend failing, because, at the end of the day, there's only me here sometimes. I've got to bring people in, as I say, freelancers, but sometimes it's only me. And I kind of need to make sure that we get to a result for a client, without too much kind of experimentation. I wish I had more time to do it. I wish I had more time to experiment with technology, learn more programs. And I keep thinking to myself that maybe I should put aside like a period of time, like maybe a month or 6 weeks or something, where I just don't take on any client work.
Yeah,
and
it's a great idea.
Try to learn a program or try something new. And certainly before I became a dad, and in the past, I would do a lot more kind of trying things and making things and experimenting. But now I just seem so busy that sometimes I have to just kind of like focus and commit to what I've said I'd do and get it done. But probably like many people who are listening to this, maybe even like yourself, I keep thinking that I'm going to change or I'm going to do something different. But then the year passes and we're in the next year and the next year, and time goes so quickly that I find myself sort of looking back sometimes and thinking, am I doing everything right? Because sometimes it doesn't feel like that. Sometimes it feels like I'm just kind of, just getting by accident, or, I don't really have like a business plan or a structure. Despite doing this for 20 odd years, like I don't really know if I'm doing it the right way, but I seem to be doing it.
But it works.
My way.
It is the right way.
It works.
For you.
Yeah. In some way it works, but I'm kind of like, probably like everybody who's listening or watching this will be thinking that's similar to me. Like we're all sort of figuring it out as we go along, and,
Yes.
and making mistakes along the way. And so probably don't experiment enough in the creative side of things, but I suppose I am to some extent. I'm experimenting with the business model because I am changing it depending on the client and the project and how I feel. And, for example, the Barcelona project was totally new for me to go over there to Barcelona and put an exhibition on. And yeah, so that's like a form of experimentation in a sort of like making it up as you go along type of way.
Yeah. Well, I think that, there's no template of success, right, that we have to fall into, especially creative people. We all like to do things our way or the way it kind of just naturally goes. So the beauty of it is that you can definitely do it in such a fluid way because you don't have like, let's say, a business to run. When you have like a bigger team, you have to make sure you pay salaries and things like that. Then there's no room for doing things in such a sort of flowy way, because you need to kind of be more of a provider than creative. And so it's great. I think that the way you do things is aligned with how you like to work, and why
change it? Well, I think that's a really interesting point, because for many years I always felt like I needed to change the business model and to employ staff and to have bigger offices and to self-promote and spend money on marketing and promotion. And I have conversations with other designers, some people like myself, some people who have big studios that they, with many staff. We're all I think we're all to some extent thinking that the grass is greener on the other side.
On the other side.
A lot of these sort of large agencies, they look at the kind of, my model and they think, well, that's great. Like you can pick and choose the projects you take on a little bit.
Exactly. You have the maximum freedom that anyone else would only dream of.
A lot of people, but then people say, well, you're a freelancer. And I say, well, I don't really feel like a freelancer either. Like I feel like a small studio because I have premises, I have an office, and I come to work in the morning, I go home at night. And, I have, as I say, I bring in people based on the project when I need to. And, I'm making a living out of it somehow. We all want to earn a bit more money, but I have some money. I can buy myself a coffee, or I can, I can buy a new t-shirt or a new pair of trainers. So, to some extent, like for me, I started to define success by longevity. Like when I started working in the design industry 25 years ago, I felt so lucky to have got a job when I left university, because a lot of my friends, they were unsuccessful. They changed. They went and worked in shops or behind the bar or in a restaurant whilst they tried to build their portfolio. But I got a job straight away, and I felt so lucky to be working in the design industry, because it was something I so wanted at university. That I really wanted to succeed, both for myself and my parents and my family. I think I'm still sort of enjoying that sense of luck. Like I still feel like, well, like it doesn't have to be about awards or, multi-million pound clients or having like 20 staff. It's just like making a living out of doing something you really love and care about and are passionate about. And every day is different. Like I've come to work today and I'm having a podcast, and, who knows what tomorrow's going to bring. And I think like to me, that's like a real definition of success, because Like I get to do something that I really enjoy and I make a little bit of money from it and I'm getting to be creative and I'm getting to meet lots of different people. And it doesn't really matter whether that's just me in this little small room or if I've got 50 people around me. Like I'm happy with what I do.
Yeah, that's a very grounded and mature way of operating, right? Because a lot of people sometimes build these teams and structures around them because somehow inside they feel empty, you know.
Yeah.
It's not so much out of willingness to create something or, you know, to bring something out into the world, but more of feeling to satisfy their ego, you know. And then even then after a while having like 20, 30 people around them, you still don't feel satisfied, you know?
Yeah.
So that's a little bit different way of operating.
For more inspiring content, subscribe to our Substack at creativity.bloomerangas.com and our Bloomerangas YouTube channel, where we explore creativity from every angle, how to activate it, live it, and facilitate it for others, featuring talks with world-class creators and insights from behind the Bloomerangas game.
So the most important is to create from that state of joy, right? And in whatever way that manifests around you, that doesn't matter really, as long as you can create, right?
And I think it's about integrity, isn't it? It's about authenticity, and I think it's about like staying true to yourself. Like I've probably done this in the past. In fact, I know I have, and I see a lot of people who I know are working independently, maybe working from home in some cases or from a co-working space where they're working in a cafe, and then they post some work online and they say, we are so happy to have produced this work, or we have, and you think, that's like, I know that there's just you. So why not own that? Why not be honest about that? And actually, it's taken a bit of time and I'm getting to grips with it. But actually, I think I want to be sometimes proud if I've just done something, you know, if I've worked on something, like if I've put on an exhibition or a project like that, then, you know, I want to be proud of myself for doing that. And if I've worked with other people, that's fine, that's different. But if I've just done it, why do we feel the need to try to embellish the truth? Why are we trying to say that, you know, again, it's that feeling of what you said, like there's something maybe they're trying to reach something that isn't quite there. Instead of just being authentic to themselves, you know, it doesn't sit bigger. It doesn't look bigger by bigging up the social media post or the LinkedIn post. Like it actually, you know, let's have some realness and some honesty and some truth to what we do. And I think that's lacking sometimes in design. And I felt like that from really early on when I was graduating university. Like, you know, we'd see talks by creatives and designers, and they'd come to the university and they'd talk about their work, and you know, and absolutely fantastic work and really good, you know, design skills and really good projects, great clients. But I felt like there wasn't really any honesty or truth about what they were saying. Like the people didn't used to talk about the struggles and the difficulties of being a creative and the problems that come with that. They just wanted to show this polished portfolio of work that showed them off in the best possible light. There was no honesty there or integrity, and it stuck with me through the many years that I've like been in the industry. That, you know, as much as I can, I sometimes want to try and be as honest as I can about the stuff that I do and the difficulties and, you know, the health issues and the burnout and the stresses, the emotional baggage that comes with being a creative, and the times you take work home and you can't forget about it and it's on your mind when you're trying to spend time with your partner or your friends or your family and you're thinking about work. You know, it's really difficult. It's really hard. And I think things are getting better. I think people are being a little bit more honest and authentic. I think we've still got a long way to go. I think sometimes I listen to podcasts or hear interviews with designers and I think I just want to hear a little bit more about the struggles and the realism of it, rather than just these amazing projects for the likes of Nike and Google and Coca-Cola. I want to hear about like the time that you worked on a project for 8 weeks and didn't get paid by the client, or, you know, you lost a pitch, or, a member of staff left you and went to work for your rival design agency, and it really hurt you and made you feel like shit. I want to hear those stories, as well as the successes, because human beings are not just all about the success. We're about like failure as well, and we're about, making mistakes, and we're about a lot of things. We're very complicated individuals, and I think design studios are also very complicated. I want to hear about the complications as well as the success stories.
Yes, beautiful. It's then when we see the big picture, we can really genuinely connect, right? Because it's all just pink, right, and beautiful. In a way, it feels fake, right? And there is a lot of it these days on social media, especially. So in a way, you stop even believing if that's true.
Absolutely. And I've probably, I've been guilty of that, just as, we all probably have. We live our lives through social media, sometimes a little bit disconnected to what our real lives are. That is social media. But I do try and be a little bit more honest on there than maybe I was sort of 5, 7, 8 years ago, where, it was definitely like, this is great, this is amazing, this is brilliant. I'm a little bit more like, actually, things happen, life happens, shit happens, and we've got to deal with it. So, you're completely right. I mean, I only joined LinkedIn a few years ago. I was always like, so kind of like, I didn't want to get on there because I felt like it was opening a, Pandora's box, or, this kind of like, what's it going to be like? But somebody convinced me that I needed to have a presence on LinkedIn, and I get it. I do understand.
Does that work for you now?
Yeah, I've not got loads of actual work from LinkedIn in terms of clients, but I think that what it has done is it's elevated my design work and the projects that I do beyond just Instagram. So Instagram was the platform I always used to promote my work. I was quite an early adopter on Instagram, purely by luck. It was a program that came out at
like
exactly
everything else.
like everything else. Well, I wasn't really on things like Facebook and Twitter. I wasn't too early an adopter on those. I kind of saw it happening and sort of stayed away from it. But Instagram, I kind of connected early on with it and started to realize that I could show like work in progress or little snippets of design work and things like that, and things that I saw in my everyday that I wanted to show people, design or typography that was in the street or on my walks. So I started to do that, and then I built a bit of a following. But I realized that a lot of people that follow me on Instagram, which is amazing, I love it, they were all also designers. In some cases, students or graduates as well. And so that was great. I was getting loads of likes for my work. But LinkedIn, I suppose, it shows that work to perhaps a different audience. Potential clients. And even though I don't really like some of the bullshit that goes with LinkedIn and the kind of, the way that people talk, I can see how it can be beneficial in terms of getting your work to a different audience than just using Instagram. And I think what I need to do better at as well is to open up that audience even further as well. Like I said before, like I don't have a website. It's just an animated GIF of some old work. Somebody emailed me the other day, quite a few people emailed me and say, can you send me your credentials document? I don't have time to put an up-to-date credentials document together. So I end up sending a really old one, or I say, you can follow my Instagram page, which, is good that I'm busy, but I sometimes think I need to probably be a little bit better at that kind of things. And being on LinkedIn was the beginning of sort of starting to, I suppose, like grow up as a studio, grow up as a designer, and try and appeal to a different audience. And it's starting to create change, I guess. It's starting to make changes.
Right. So what, just based on what you said before, was very, very interesting to hear. What was your biggest failure, let's say, that, was really tough to kind of overcome in your career?
I think the first thing that came into my mind when you asked that question, and I've probably made loads of failures, like everybody.
Yes.
I've made loads of mistakes. I think I probably stayed in design agencies too long, because I worked for 3 or 4 graphic design agencies before I started working for myself, and I think maybe I wish I'd had a little bit more experience working with more different people. I think I probably got a little bit too comfortable in some of those studios, the team around you, the clients, the studio, the work, they know you. I don't think I challenged myself enough sometimes. I think I could have worked maybe in a different part of the UK or even a different part of the world. Like I said, I came here to university in 1997 and 98, and I've stayed here ever since, and I love this city and I love Manchester, but I sometimes wish that I'd maybe lived abroad or done something a little bit more adventurous along the way. And I think probably, like, full transparency, complete honesty, like I think sometimes that fear holds me back a little bit, I think I said before, like, I love the fact that this is an independent studio, and I will always champion that independence and that feeling of working for yourself, and I think that's really important. But sometimes I feel like maybe I've had a few interns working with me that perhaps looking back, I could have and should have maybe made that leap and employed them, perhaps to have another person. So I think fear and that sort of not taking a chance sometimes, whether that's working in an agency too long or perhaps not taking an opportunity. I mean, I'll tell you a funny story. I told it recently. It's a bit embarrassing, but I don't mind sharing it with you. But a number of years ago, I got an email from the marketing team at Nike, which was like, wow, this is amazing. Nice. And I panicked. I thought, I shouldn't be getting emails from the marketing team at Nike, like, this is a mistake. And they wanted me to work on this project, and I was very busy as well at the time, but I could have made it work. But I panicked. I was nervous, and I sort of thought, I wouldn't be able to do it. Like, my work isn't good enough. I basically, that kind of fear held me back. And so I just replied and said, I'm really sorry. I'm just a little bit busy at the moment, maybe in the future. And it was like a sliding doors moment, because it could have opened bigger projects for, I wouldn't do that mistake now if anyone from Nike is listening. But at that point, I didn't feel experienced enough. I didn't feel good enough. I didn't think I could do it. And I didn't realize the benefit at that point of bringing other people in. So if you can't do something, then find somebody who can. I felt like I had to do it all myself, and I didn't feel confident that I could deliver it on my own. Right now, I know that I would do it totally differently, because I would bring a team in and I would work on it, and we would create, we'd do the project. We'd say yes, and we'd figure it out afterwards. Yes, but I think, going back to your question about my biggest regret or my biggest failure, it's probably that. It's probably not realizing that you should say yes a bit more and then figure it out afterwards. Or you should take a leap. Take the risk. Yeah, take a leap. Leave a studio and go and try and find a job somewhere else or freelance. So when I did finally leave the last studio that I was at, and it was a great studio, but I realized after a short while that I could have and I should have done it a lot sooner. And it was holding me back a little bit.
So what is in your horizon for the next few years? What is it that you'd really love to do, to create?
Oh, wow. Great question. Well, I think, like we touched on earlier, obviously, we're, as designers, we're all sort of very much aware of the changing technology and how fast things are changing. And I just want to hope that, it doesn't change too fast, and that there's still, a job for me in this industry. I think that would be a great definition of success, if in 2 or 3 years' time I'm still creating and I'm still making work for clients. I think, I really like working with people, and, obviously we talked about it at the start, the recent project with the Barcelona creatives and the Manchester creatives reminds me of the power of collaboration and the power of making connections. And I think I just want to make sure that the work that I do, makes a difference a little bit. And I'd like to kind of keep working on some real legacy projects, like long-term projects that, you know, can be seen by lots of different people, not just in a small, you know, isolated way. So whether that's events or exhibitions globally, or whether that's working collaboratively with various different, you know, places in the world. I'd like to do more talks at universities and colleges. I'd like to go do workshops. I really like working with young people, young creatives, and give them sort of some of my experience and kind of impart my knowledge on the next generation of designers. But, you know, like, I need to spend more time being a dad as well, and being a good husband and being a good friend. I wish I had a little bit more time. I feel like I'm constantly on this like treadmill, like a hamster or a gerbil, you know, running around all the time. And I need to get back a sense of balance, because the last year or so especially have been particularly difficult with lots of projects. And so, yeah, I think I still want to work really hard. I still want to produce really good work. I still want to make loads of client connections and network, but I want to just get that balance right as well between being successful, doing well as a designer, but having some time off. You know, it would be nice to go to like a 4-day week, or, you know, taking a little bit of time, like we said earlier, to maybe just focus on building the business from pulling some credentials together, or getting a proper website, or learning a new program, or just taking some time off, traveling a little bit more, and, you know, seeing the world. Because I don't want to look back in 20, 30 years time and think, okay, I had a good career and I enjoyed it, but I just worked like non-stop. And before I knew it, my daughter was like, she was going to university, and I missed a big part of that. And I think that the most important thing I could probably say is, like, to get that balance right would be good for me. Get that balance right, you know, really find that sweet spot in the middle between working hard but also having time off as well.
Yes, that's a very important thing these days, right? With everyone living really fast lives. So I wish you that.
Thank you.
So thank you so much, Dave, for your time. It was a very inspiring talk about listening to really your career full of adventure. I guess what stuck with me is that, well, if things happen by luck, there's nothing wrong with it. It's actually something just to be happy about and grateful for, right? Because a lot of people out there really kind of need to push up the mountain, you know, to experience what you've experienced. So enjoy the freedom that you have.
Yeah, hopefully that's the aim. That's the plan anyway.
Yes, and doing these design exhibitions, Manchester and other cities, sounds really, really exciting. So
great. Watch this space then. That's all I can say. You never know what the future holds. That's the great thing about the industry that we work in and that we're involved in, is that, you know, I could come off this call and there could be an email from somebody somewhere asking me to do, I don't know, something new. And that's the most exciting thing about our jobs, isn't it? That you don't really know where the journey's going to take you.
Yes, yes. So for all of you who are listening or watching us on YouTube, you'll find the links to Dave's work in the comments. Also check out the Designs Exhibitions website that was recently done in Barcelona. It's a lot of inspiring work out there. So thank you everyone, and we'll see you the next time.
Thank you.